Hey, it's Andrew at BTO Range here in Conroe, Texas, and another little episode here, and maybe I'm having an episode. I don't know. Anyway, Ruger Single Six is what we're going to talk about today, and I've got a couple of guns that I pulled from inventory over there at the range. I have the original Single Six, the old model. And then this is a 1971 gun in the old model gun. And then a new model Single Six, and that's a 1984. So there's 13 years of difference between the two guns, but a world of difference internally on them. So a little bit about the Single Six revolver, one of the most popular guns that Ruger ever made for sure. Ruger had been in business in the 40s doing their .22 semi-auto pistol, the Ruger Standard Auto. And after World War II, Colt had discontinued production of the single-action Army revolver, and single-action revolvers were pretty much going to be a thing of the past. There wasn't any shooter interest in it except for people that maybe older people at the time that had the guns, pre-war, back of the first gen single action armies and whatnot. So there were some hangers on. The old Western types still used them. And then around 1949, we start seeing the Western movies. In 1951, certainly television started to come about, and the Western movie and TV show as a genre were popularized. You had, just all I still watch them today. I mean, you had Roy Rogers, you had Gene Autry, you had Have Gun Will Travel with Paladin. You had all of these, Gunsmoke started radio and TV, and all the old radio shows. Butch Cassidy, not Butch Cassidy, Hopalong Cassidy. The Westerner with Jimmy Stewart. All of those old radio shows and TV shows kind of spurred people to get back into the Western guns. So lever actions came roaring back, and famously Colt brought back the second gen sometime later. But before that, Bill Ruger kind of thought, man, there's a market vacuum here that we could take advantage of. So he figured a way to make the single action Army less expensive to produce and therefore less expensive at retail, and the Single Six was born. So in July of '53 is when we see the gun introduced to the public. Only about 100 revolvers were produced in '53. In '54, that number goes to 10,000, and '55 and 20,000, and it just went on from there. So the big difference is that Ruger has always been a big pioneer, a big proponent of investment casting the major parts. So instead of milling them out or machining them out of a solid block of steel. So that saves machining time, and time is money, right? So it saves machining time, it reduces waste. There's a lot of monetary advantages to that investment casting, and Ruger took full advantage of those. And also, instead of using flat springs, instead of using flat springs in the gun for the hammer spring and for the cylinder stop spring and sear spring and whatnot, the Ruger used coil springs. And so that was another, it's a lot easier to trim a coil spring to length, buy coil spring stock in a specific tension weight and cut them to length and form them. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to make a leaf spring where it has to be heated and quenched to a specific degree in order for it to truly be a spring. So the coil spring was a huge time saver, and again, time is money. So the gun wasn't nearly as expensive to make. So originally, the gun was in this configuration here. Now this is a 1971 gun. It's not quite as early as the beginning guns, but this was a 5.5-inch barrel, had the rounded single action Army style integral sight, and this rear sight is a notch. It's dovetailed into a notch in the barrel. We have a taper here, so that's going to be the original configuration, really. of the single six. It came with one cylinder. It was 22 long rifle. That's how the gun came. Of course, you could shoot longs or shorts in it if you wanted to, but the gun came in 22 long rifle. There was no Magnum cylinder at the time. In 1953, 54, there really wasn't a 22 Magnum cylinder. So, and the grip frame on the gun was replicated the Colt grip frame. This is a later grip frame. The XR3 grip frame was the original grip frame is very similar to the Colt grip, the Colt single action grip. Later on, they would change that to an XR3, so and we'll talk about that. Let's clear these guns out before we start handling them and comparing them real quick. So, in typical single action fashion, you open the loading gate, and on the old model gun that hasn't been converted, you bring that back to the half cock, and you can roll through the 6 chambers to make sure that that you're not loaded. So on this gun, you load 5. Otherwise, there's a cartridge underneath the hammer, which is not the way to carry the old model gun. The new model gun is cleared a little bit differently. You open the loading gate, and opening the loading gate frees the cylinder. You don't have to manipulate the hammer at all. It's got the transfer bar safety on it. So this gun, the new model gun, is safe to load and keep loaded with 6 rounds in the chamber when you carry it. So that was one of the big, and we'll talk about why that happened in just a minute. You know what? That's not going to stay on there. Should have thought that out a little bit better. Anyway, so originally the gun came with black plastic grips, and the eagle on the 22 autos. On early Ruger grips, the eagle was red. It's called a red eagle, the red eagle grips. But in 1952, Ruger's partner Alex Sturm died. Sturm, Ruger and Company. The Sturm part died in 52, and Ruger changed the coloration of the eagle to black after Sturm died. So there shouldn't be any single sixes, early single sixes with red medallions. Because they should all be the Black Eagle medallion. And the medallions on Ruger grips, these are actually very heavily collected, Rugers are, and Ruger collectors are as picky as any other brand of collectors, whether it's Colt or Smith & Wesson or whomever. The vendors that made the medallions for the Ruger grips, there's some variations there. So we see the Black Eagle on the silver escutcheon is what you would normally find on that old model single six. And then the red eagles came back on the 22 autos about 1999. And then there were some that are called a squished chicken motif because the eagle, when it was pressed, kind of made it look flattened a little bit. So all of that, and that's getting to be really nitpicky Ruger collector stuff, but it does happen. So these should all have the early model guns. The old model will be the Black Eagle medallions. So, and by the way, none of them are marked old model at all because they didn't know there'd be a new model when they were making them. So the new models will say new model, that the old models just say single six. So. Black plastic grips. It didn't take very long before Ruger was producing grips in stag and even ivory with the medallions. And if the gun is verifiable somehow as coming with those grips, then it does add $400 plus to maybe up to $1,000 for actual ivory when we start talking about value. Now that said, a Ruger factory letter may or may not have the information of how the gun came with grips or not. It may or may not. And the grips were available, sold separately. So that can be kind of hard to attribute unless the gun is engraved or otherwise embellished to where it makes sense for it to come from the factory with stag or ivories. They may well be purchased after the fact, and then you have to look, is it genuine Ruger grip, or is it an aftermarket grip with Ruger medallions in it? And that's a whole topic in and of itself that people need to possibly get some additional help with if they're evaluating or if they're contemplating adding a ton of money to a purchase because of the grip material. So The walnut grips that you see here, they came about in 1955. They actually cost $5 extra over the black plastic panels that were standard on the gun. So initially, the gun had a different loading gate on it than what we see in this revolver here. It had what's called a flat gate. So instead of this rounded loading gate here, it was just a flat panel, and you had to dig in there with a fingernail and pop it open. And we've got some still pictures we'll put up there and to show you what the flat gate looks like. And there was enough concern and complaint about that from the shooting public that Ruger changed to this in 1957. So there were some other models made in the single six. There was an aluminum frame gun called the Lightweight, made from 56 to late 58, 1959. And there's a version of that called the Tricolor, which had the aluminum clear anodize and then black cylinder, things of that nature. And the ejector rod housing was a different color. So the Tricolors bring a little bit more. There's all manner of little niche collectible categories in the Ruger single six that, in fact, if we get our hands on some of those, then we'll definitely bring them forward and do a whole new video just on that model. But in 1959, we see the addition of the 4 5/8 barrel, which would be the same length as the ejector rod housing, similar to a single action. And they also had a 9.5-inch barrel that brought out in 1959. So in 1962, we see the .22 Magnum come about, kind of contemporaneously with the development of the cartridge by Winchester. We see the gun start shipping with both cylinders. Now, one thing to bear in mind about a gun that's .22 long rifle and .22 Magnum is those are two different bore diameters. The .22 long rifle bore diameter is .220. Whereas the .22 Magnum has a centerfire .22 bore diameter is .224. So the guns that shoot both, revolvers with both cylinders, generally have a compromise bore diameter of .222. So bear that in mind. You may get a little bit less accuracy out of .22 long rifle in a convertible gun, maybe not, because the bullet is soft enough to where it will expand from pressure to meet up with the rifling. But bear that in mind, that if you have I guess long way around for saying this, if you have a gun that didn't have a convertible cylinder to begin with, like an early Ruger single six, do not try to attempt to fit a Magnum cylinder to it. The bore diameter is wrong. The bore diameter is too small. So it should not be done. Just because it can be done doesn't necessarily mean that it should be done. So also in 1962, we see the redesigned grip frame. It becomes XR3 RED, and that is marked, it is cast into the aluminum grip frame body, XR3, or it'll say RED, for redesign. And the grip dimensions are different. The grip dimensions are different, a little bit larger on the RED grip frame. And so if you're going to source grips for your early Ruger single action, regardless whether it's single six or Black Hawk or Super Black Hawk or whichever one, they use the same grip frame. So you need to know if you have an XR3 and XR3 redesign. And even in the Vaquero, we see the XR3 redesign, the XR3 come up in the Vaquero also, as the cowboy shooters wanted the smaller grip frame. So the XR3 came back to being, so the grips don't interchange. So, and the grips don't interchange on single sixes or on Black Hawks between the XR3 and the XR3 redesign, or RED. So bear that in mind. We see also in 62, the ejector housing goes from steel to the aluminum, like we see on this gun here. And we see the introduction of a 6.5-inch barrel also. So you have 4 5/8, 5.5, 6.5, 9.5 now in barrel lengths. In 64, there was a significant change with the introduction of a gun called the Super Single Six. And a lot of people think that Super Single Six coincides with when they were offering .22 Magnum. That is not the case. The Super Single Six would be this gun. This is a new model, but it's the same configuration as a Super Single Six was. We had a different, we had the back strap now, as you can see the difference. Let me see if I can line these up where it makes sense. The difference in the contour of the backstrap, we have a much larger, beefier backstrap on the new model and on the Super Single Six, so that it accommodates this fully adjustable rear sight. And we go from the rounded early style single action sight to a Partridge type sight that's screwed on to the barrel. So that was a Super Single Six, and to this day, that's still the same pattern that the Single Six occurs in now. So in 1973 is when everything happened, old model versus new model. So apparently, even though by 1972, I don't know, 150 plus years of single action revolvers, people still thought they could load 6 and carry it in a holster that way safely, and a guy perforated himself with a Ruger revolver. So Ruger did a redesign, and they incorporated the transfer bar, which is visible. Let me get my pen out. That's the transfer bar on a Ruger revolver right there. So when the hammer is at rest, it doesn't contact the firing pin. This ledge of the hammer rests above the firing pin on the frame, so that when the trigger is pulled, you see where the transfer bar is located now. If we were to drop the hammer but let that safety go, I'm trying to do it where it stays on camera, that transfer bar drops out of the way, and then the hammer would fall against the frame. So with the trigger pulled to the rear, then the hammer hits the transfer bar hits the firing pin hits the cartridge. So that's the transfer bar thing, and that's what separates the new model from the old model. Now, in order to make that happen, they had to redesign the lockwork of the gun. So the three screws that you see on the old model don't pertain anymore to the new model, and they're done by the lockworks now. There's a hammer pin and a trigger pin, and everything indexes off of those. Now, also, if you send a revolver to Ruger for work, if this revolver were to go back to Ruger for work, they would want to try to modify it. They would want to update it, updates in quotation marks. They would want to update it to new model lockwork. Most collectors don't want to do that. They want to keep that old model with the multiple clicks like you would hear in a Colt. They want to keep that intact. So that's the biggest difference between the old model and new model, and collectors still will pay a premium for an unaltered old model gun. So that was in 73. In 74, we start seeing some alternate runs. We're not going to get too deep into production of the new model guns past that. I mean, there's just a ton of different variations or distributor-specific variations, different barrel lengths, different configurations, bird heads, grip, things of that nature. But significantly, in 74, there was what was called a star model. It was not called a star model. Collectors call it a star model. And it was in stainless steel. And it was only produced 74, 75, maybe a little bit into 76. I don't know. I may not be correct, but I've never seen a star-marked gun with the Ruger bicentennial inscription. In 1976, all Ruger firearms across all lines were inscribed "Made in the 200th year of American Liberty" on the gun, typically on the barrel. So I've not seen a star gun that way, but the significance of the star gun, stainless steel gun, they were made in 4 5/8, 5.5, and 9.5. A lot of them you see are 9.5-inch barrels. But they only shipped with the long rifle cylinder. They did not have both cylinders, and there was a star stamped in the frame in front of the trigger guard. And that was the indication that it only had that long rifle cylinder. It had the 220 bore diameter also. So if you see a star gun offered that has a magnum cylinder fitted to it, be very wary of that. It did not come that way. Now, there were later on in the new model single sixes, there was another run of guns that were shipped only with a single cylinder, and they were marked with, I've heard it described as an arrow or heard it described as a house. It may be, a depiction of the old barn from Ruger. I'm not sure what that marking is, but there's another marking right there, and that indicates that the gun was only shipped with the long rifle cylinder from the factory. So valuation on these guns, right? So like we said, there's a huge amount of collector interest in all things old Ruger. And there are even some new model Rugers of very low production that have collectors picking them up now too. So it's the same thing we always look at: condition, originality, and scarcity, right? Not necessarily in that order. So let's look at this old model gun first. Let's set this new model out of the way. So scarcity, we have a finite years of production. They're not in production anymore, obviously. From what, 57 to 73, so or 53 to 73. So 20 years of old model guns. So which version of the old model gun do you have? This is just a very standard old model gun. It would have in 1971, it would have been shipped with a Magnum cylinder, and just we have the Magnum cylinder for this gun. The Magnum cylinders, the cylinders are electro-penciled to the gun serial number wise. It has the last 4 digits or last 3 digits of the serial number electro-penciled on them. So look for that if you're looking at a gun with another cylinder. So having said that, can you get a cylinder? You can send a gun back into Ruger to have a cylinder fitted to it, but like we said, if you sent this gun back in to get a Magnum cylinder fitted, they're going to want to change that lock work in the gun as well, and probably don't want to do that. So cylinders can be had off of eBay and various other used part sources. Having said that, we had a guy checking a Ruger revolver. Now, it was a Super Blackhawk, not a single 6, but he had bought a cylinder. He had lost his original cylinder, and he had bought a cylinder off of eBay for the Super Blackhawk. But it had been so heavily fitted that there was no way that we could make it work in his revolver. So we ended up sending it back to Ruger and had them fit a cylinder to it. It's not very expensive to have them do that, but just be aware that there are no new cylinders living out there on eBay and whatnot. You really have to source those from Ruger if you're wanting to get a cylinder done. So originality on this gun, we had the wood panel grips. We had the correct marking, 22 caliber instead of 22 long rifle. There were some guns that were marked 22 Magnum that shipped only with a Magnum cylinder, so they would be so marked as 22 Magnum as well. So it's a steel frame. It's not a lightweight. And looking at the markings, the serial number on the markings, and by the way, the serial number is 2 digits, a hyphen, and then 5 digits. And that serial number convention started in 1969. Prior to 69, they were just, there was no prefix. They were just all a straight set of numbers. So if you see one of these without the hyphen in it, that would be a pre-1969 gun. So that's another way of determining whether something's been messed with or not, right? So if it has a, what am I trying to say? If it has post-69 features or pre-69 features with this, with a non, good Lord, with a non-dash serial number, then you know the gun's been messed with quite a bit. So originality, looking at the part, you know, from an old bluing guy's standpoint, the part that's hardest to keep intact on this gun is this emblem right here. When you go to polish that frame, it's hard to keep that emblem intact without washing it out. So this is perfect. So I'm completely convinced that this is original finish on this gun. Throughout, all the lettering on the top of the barrel is correct and perfect. So the originality is all there. Now, looking at condition, a lot of these guns you find in not so great condition because they were meant to be used, and they were used a lot. They were carried in the, you know, in holsters out in the woods and out and about, and not well taken care of in a lot of cases. So you see quite a few of these in low condition, but we have a little bit of discoloration here on the sides of the hammer. That's pretty common. These are polished bright. These are steel, not stainless. They're steel, they're blued, and then polished white on the sides. So We can also take this cylinder out real quick. We can open this, come to half cock. We have free spinning cylinder here. We hear the click, so we know the cylinder stop spring is working. We're going to push in the detent there, pull the base pin, and then the cylinder is just going to lift out. So we have in this gun here, should be the Magnum cylinders are marked Magnum. So this is the long rifle cylinder. It's rebated all the way around. And I can't tell in this light, but the Magnum cylinder is marked to the gun. I looked at it at the shop. So when I talk about fitting of the cylinder is when the cylinders are fitted to the gun, this interface here where you see it polished bright, that goes up against the frame here. And you have to fit that, then put the, you adjust that, put the cylinder in, has to fit inside the window with the correct cylinder to barrel gap. So these are left long, and then they're dressed down, fitted, dressed down, fitted, dressed down, fitted. So if the particular revolver, this had been a used cylinder we bought on eBay, and it had been dressed down too much, then the gun obviously would not be correct. So we've already checked the bore on this gun. It's also a good idea to check to make sure that we have adequate firing pin protrusion on the gun. So all that is good to go. So what can you expect to pay for just a standard old model single six? Well, just the standard gun, the most common gun, which is the one I've got in my hand, typically run in that $400 range, $400 to $450 range. Now, anything that makes it a rare piece, obviously, is going to make it a lot more expensive. So the tricolors, the star models, the low production guns, 9.5-inch barrels, that kind of thing, all add money to the equation for sure. So the new model single six is a little bit different. To remove the cylinder on that, we just open the gate. Now the cylinder spins. We can push our base pin latch in, remove the base pin, and then the cylinder will just lift out. So this is the Magnum cylinder for this gun. And it's marked 22 Win Mag in a ribbon around the side. It is not rebated here at all. And it's we're kind of looking at the same thing. We're making sure we have firing pin protrusion. The gun's dirty, but and it is, again, an 80s gun. There's really nothing special about it. This gun we only had the one cylinder for, so that does negatively affect the value of the gun. So a gun like this, if it only had the long rifle cylinder or the Magnum cylinder, it's probably a $320 gun, between $300 and $350, fairly reasonably. If you can get it cheaper than that, then by all means, do that. I've seen people ask more, but I doubt they're ever going to get it. So that's the Ruger Single Six. I'm not 100% sure that we've taken. I know we've taken apart a classic style Uberti revolver. I don't know that we've taken apart a new model Ruger, and we may do that in an upcoming video. So we may do that to illustrate the difference between the takedown or how the gun is put together versus the old gun. So that's the Ruger Single Six, old model and new model, some of the differences between them. Either one would be a great addition to your collection. They're really super strong, and you're not going to hurt them at all. Ruger has another gun out now called the Wrangler. And the Wrangler is like a zinc casting frame, and they really designed that to be competitive with the Heritage revolvers. I'm not a big super fan of that gun, but nonetheless, they're out there now. So I would stick with a single six just from personal preference. If you have a Wrangler and like it, fine. I mean, there's plenty of them out there, and they seem to work really well. I just like steel. As much as possible anyway, as opposed to zinc. If you like what we're doing, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that little notification bell thing. We try to put content out at least once a week as interesting stuff comes through the range. And we'll keep doing it as long as you folks keep watching. We appreciate all your support. We'll see you next time.